Welcome to Open Oven. My name is Mike Smith. I am not a chef. I am just a person that likes to cook. I started cooking in my family as the oldest of 3 boys in a single parent family. You got to learn a few things along the way. Today I'm going to show you a really simple recipe and a real nice recipe. We're going to make fish. So we're going to do a unique recipe that I learned when I was in St. John's, Newfoundland. It's salt and vinegar chip fish and chips. Yes, you heard me right, salt and vinegar chips with a tartar sauce, and we're gonna make a homemade tartar sauce, and then we're also gonna make a homemade coleslaw with that. So we're gonna get started with the fish. What we need to do first, and what's really kind of unique about this, and this is the first time I'm gonna try it this way, which is interesting. Obviously, usually I've either fried it or baked it, but we're gonna try the old air fryer. So we're gonna air fry this fish today. So before we get started, I don't always use parchment paper inside the air fryer. The air fryers do have bottoms on them that are kind of allow some air to go through. You can spray them usually with some type of cooking spray, non-stick cooking spray. But we'll just line our air fryer so that it's ready to go a little bit easier to get that fish out. So what we're going to do is, first thing we're going to do is we're going to salt the fish. I'm just going to spread it out, make sure we can get all of it done there. Let me wipe my hand before I touch everything else. We're going to use some sea salt, and we're going to salt them. Of course, we're adding salt and vinegar chips, so we won't need to salt them too much. And then before we get to the next stage, when I say salt and vinegar chips, I went ahead and did some, but basically you're just taking some salt and vinegar chips. They're really hard kettle caked ones, work wonderful. I'm just using regular salt and vinegar chips. And we're gonna crunch those up into real small pieces, just like something you might, maybe a little tiny bit bigger than breadcrumbs or panko. But just get them small enough that they start to look like a little bit like something you might bread it with. And it's just plain old salt and vinegar chips. I was in St. John's this past summer. I had fish and chips in a week at least 4 or 5 times. When in St. John's, you got to have fish and chips. Tried it at various different restaurants. And then the last 2 times I had it, I had this salt and vinegar chips, which is they're well known for in that part of Newfoundland. So there we go. That's basically going to be our batter. Now, a little bit unique is how we're going to create this. So we're going to take mayonnaise. And the recipe calls for about 2 tablespoons. I'm going to take a tablespoon and I'm going to start to coat it. And that's all you're really doing. As you're coating it, 1 tablespoon might be enough. This is not a ton of fish. And I'll just kind of take the fish and coat both sides of it, well coated with mayonnaise. Get that out of the way so you can see it. So get it well coated with mayonnaise. And the mayonnaise is going to be used to take the salt and vinegar chips out of the bowl and stick them to the fish. So where you would normally have maybe flour, some type of flour and egg mixture, We're using mayonnaise for this recipe. If you wanted to do a more traditional skin, you could, and you would just mix perhaps the flour and the, I need a little bit more, the flour with the salt and vinegar chips, but this is the recipe we're going to use today. There's tons of recipes again online where you can find different recipes for salt and vinegar chip cod. And so we're using cod. Really the recipe would work for any whitefish, and you shouldn't have any trouble baking it or frying it. In this case, we're going to take it into the air fryer. Use my gripper here, and you want to make sure that they're not on top of each other. So you should be able to have room to be able to put that on the bottom. Spread it up. I got to put it in the batter. Silly me. So we're going to put it right in the batter. Spin it around a little bit. And it looks kind of like what it's supposed to look like. Battered fish. So we're going to throw that in there. For those of you who have watched the show before, I tend to be a little messy sometimes. We'll get that in there. Last piece in there. Make a little room for one more. Our last piece. And obviously the more fish you're going to cook, and depending on the size of your air fryer, this is a relatively small air fryer, so it's going to do these 4 pieces, you know, relatively quickly. We're looking at probably around 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to turn them at 10 minutes. There we go. Let me just show you that. So they're all nicely on the bottom. They've got their mix on top. We're gonna do it at around 400 degrees. This air fryer's maximum is 400, so put it on high. Like I said, we're gonna check it at 10 minutes. Like most fish, I'll flip it at 10 minutes. We'll let it go 5 more minutes. And when it's flaky with a fork and it's nice and flaky, you know that you're done. So I'm gonna set that on there. I'm gonna set the timer at 10 minutes and let that go. When we come back, we're going to work on our tartar sauce, and then we'll do our move on from there and finish up. We'll be right back. And we're back. All right, so our fish is well underway. We're going to take a look at the tartar sauce now, get that kind of going. And we're going to start with a cup of mayonnaise. So you want to be fairly accurate on your sizing. So I'm going to actually use a cup. I know it's not like me to actually measure things out, but you know, we're going to try to make it look right here. And we're making more than enough tartar sauce. In fact, you could probably use this for a couple of settings with the small amount of fish that we have. I'm going to combine everything in one bowl. So we'll get that mayo in there. Move that to the side. We're going to do a cup of dill. The dill pickles are going to be, in this particular case, we're going to do them pretty fine. So we're going to cut those up kind of quickly. It says a cup. I mean, you would put as much or as little as you want to on there. I'll just do it on the plate. And I'm going to cut those up into small little pieces. You kind of get the drift of it there. You use a sharp knife, just like anything. You want to, excuse me, if it's sharp, you're going to get much better and quicker results out of it. There we go. I'm going to throw that in there. Not quite a cup, but I'm okay with a little less dill in it, because we're going to put a tiny bit of actual dill in there. So just kind of finely chop some of that dill. I'm going to pick it. I'm going to not use the stems. I'm just going to kind of obviously just use some of the bush, as I call it, the tree, some of the feed, some of the leaves. All right, we're starting to get there. We're going to do a teaspoon of lemon juice. You don't want to put too much lemon juice. You want to stick with just a teaspoon. You don't want it to be overbearingly lemon. You're going to use a teaspoon of sugar. I'm diabetic, so whenever I can find a chance to use something other than sugar, I will. So I'm going to use an artificial sweetener. That's going to give me about half of a teaspoon. That would be more than enough for what we're going to need. The artificial sweetener tends to be sweeter than sugar, so you can get away with about half of what you're going to normally use. I'm going to put some pepper in there. You definitely need about a quarter of a teaspoon or so. Take a peek at that. And then the final thing is onion. Now, you can do onion or you can leave onion out. That's really kind of up to you. We'll put a tiny bit in there. Grab my my knife, and we're going to just really put a little bit of finely chopped onion in there. That should be enough. And like I said, I'm going to try to get that into small little pieces. Sounds like our chicken is really ready to roll here. I'm just going to take a quick peek at it, or our fish, I should say. Oh yeah, that's starting to look like what it should look like. Get that back in there. All right. And then we're going to mix this up. If I get a big piece of dill or something, dill pickle, I might chop that up. I'm going to put a little bit more dill in there. It looks a little white. Throw in a bit more dill. We want it to definitely have some flavor. Here we go. And that's our tartar sauce. When we come back, there's our 10 minutes. When we come back, we're going to take a peek at the fish and keep moving on. Thanks. And we're back. Fish is almost finished up. We're going to do our coleslaw now. So we're going to start with cabbage. I'm going to go, the recipe kind of calls for 6 to 8. We're going to half everything, so I'm trying to get, I'll take the outside layers off. We'll cut away that stem. I don't want that big thick piece of stem. And we're going to shred this. I was just shredding carrots. I had to go ahead and get that kind of done ahead of time. We're going to shred this. Probably make a little bit of mess here. We won't get through the whole thing, but just so you kind of understand what the ingredients are, we'll kind of do about half of what I have for the recipe. But the full recipe calls for 3 to 4 cups of cabbage, about a carrot and a half, and about a 1/4 cup of parsley. Those are the 3 things we're going to do. And our fish should be done here shortly. Then we'll let that cool down a tiny bit. All right, and then we've got lots of little stuff in there. I get some little bigger pieces here. So we're kind of loose outside stuff gone. Get that in there, mix it up. All right, now we're getting a little bit of a mess here. We'll add about half the carrot in. Mix that up. We're going to put some parsley in. Recipe asks for about a 1/4 cup. We're going to go to about half of that, so we won't fill it with parsley. We're going to mix that up. And we're going to set that aside for a second because we're going to get the wet ingredients. Mayo. We're going to go with about a 1/4 cup. I can estimate that. Whoops, a little big for that. A 1/4 cup or so. We're going to go with apple cider vinegar. Again, the recipe asks for a tablespoon, so we're going to about half of that because we've finished about half of our coleslaw. We're going to use Dijon mustard. Again, tablespoon, we're going to use about half of that. Get that in there. We want about half, a little bit of celery salt. Again, the recipe asks for half a teaspoon. We've half our recipe, so we'll use about half of that. It's going to give some flavoring. I'll put a couple squirts of salt in there. And then recipe asks for a tablespoon of sugar. Again, I'm going to use sugar substitute, so it'll be about half of that. And then we've halved our recipe, so I'm just going to add some. You don't have to add the sugar if you prefer it to be more tart. Then you don't even have to add the sugar. So we're going to mix that up. Kind of looks like what it's supposed to look. Smells good. It's got a little vinegar smell to it. We're going to mix that in. And then what you usually do is you'll mix it in and you'll taste it. And if you think you need to add, if it's a little too tart, you maybe add the rest of that sugar. If it's not wet enough, I think we're going to add the rest of that mayonnaise mixture. I got a real mess going here, but that looks pretty awesome. All right. Set that aside for a second. All right, we're going to check out the fish. Looks nice and golden brown. Again, you want to try it. The rule is, like any fish, you want it to be nice and flaky. You want it to be cooked. And look at that. Perfect. That's my fork. Really ripped off some of the top there. Put that on there. Make it look nice. Put a little parsley on there. I'm a lemon guy. Who doesn't have lemon on fish? I'm gonna, whoops, throw a little lemon there. Let's get our slaw on there. Nice cool colors. You got the oranges and the whites from the cabbage. You can use multicolored cabbage. If you really want it to look really colorful, you can get that red cabbage in there. And remember our tartar sauce. Yeah, a little more on there. Probably a little dash of salt, and a little dash of pepper. And look at that. Pretty awesome, and all done in an air fryer in very little time. Can make this for your family quite easily, quite quickly. And like I said, you can use any white fish. There's a lot of fish out there, white fish that is quite affordable. So salt and vinegar chips, fish and chips, coleslaw, and salsa, and tartar sauce. Hope you enjoy.